Imagine sitting in a hearing room and hearing a lawmaker ask what happens when the most notorious scandal of our time collides with politics, power, and selective justice. That single question hit like a shockwave. The exchange wasn't just another round of political theater, it was a raw look into how truth can be manipulated, how institutions bend under pressure, and how survivors are left waiting for answers. Within seconds, the conversation turned from a tense hearing into something much bigger, a story about whether America is willing to confront the uncomfortable or continue playing games with accountability. And for the next few minutes, you'll see how one heated back and forth pulled the curtain back on contradictions, double standards, and the dangerous vacuum where conspiracy theories thrive.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin, I want to caution my colleagues on, one-sided violence in this country. We just heard that there were no riots on the right. We're literally sitting in the building where there was a giant riot by supporters of the president, the right. We also heard that only leftists, have said that Trump is a Nazi. In 2016, the current vice president of the United States said, Trump is either a cynical asshole or he's America's Hitler. And so this is the problem. I don't want to have to say this garbage, but you want me to sit here and get painted with one brush, the whole left. No, there are extremes on the left, and there are extremes on the right. And we collectively should tackle that. But to come here and just look at us and say we all support what's going on in the extremes is why we can't solve anything in this building. Director, let me say first, thank you for being here, and my condolences on the loss of your friend. And I'm happy to hear that you want to do more on the social media platforms. It's crazy what's going on the social media platforms. There are so many conspiracy theories on what's going on with Charlie Kirk. Israel assassinated him, right? There are conspiracy theories about your personal social life all day. It is totally rampant. Big names on the right, Candace Owens, right? Talking about how what's been released as far as the dialogue between the perpetrator and his roommate is manufactured by the FBI, manufactured by the administration. It is totally rampant, allowing foreign governments to just perpetrate these platforms, all of these bots, all of the time to weaponize Americans. You see what's going on here? This is a byproduct of all of that. What's going on in the streets is a byproduct of all of that. What's happening is you see people celebrate Luigi Mangione is a byproduct of all of that. And so if we want to do something, then we should talk about Section 230. We should talk about how we're going to make sure that we don't let foreign governments poison our children's mind. And so I will work with you on that, Director.
I'll work with you on 230 any day.
No problem. So now, that was the good part. I want to take your attention back a second, okay? Breaking news. Kash Patel is nominated to be the FBI director. Dan Bongino is nominated to be the number 2 at the FBI. MAGA celebrates, rejoices, bells are ringing out. The team, Patel, Bongino, that sought out every podcast microphone to talk about the Epstein list. The names are finally going to get released. It begins. They produce white binders. Phase 1 with the podcasters. This is not actually one of them, of course. I made this. Your name's on it, right? And the names are going to come out. Pam Bondi says the list is on her desk. Then a memo comes out all of a sudden and says, there's no list. Oh, no phase 2. Phase 2 binders never happen. You said the conspiracy theories around Epstein just aren't true. They never have been. And yesterday, in an answer to Senator Kennedy, you said the FBI is not in possession of any credible evidence that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone but himself. So according to your testimony yesterday and in this committee, according to the evidence the FBI has, the number of names on the list are 0.
No,
zero.
The index has been released, and the number of people involved in that trafficking operation were charged. in 2018.
Other than Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, your testimony in the Senate and here is that according to the evidence you have, the number of other names is 0.
That were charged based on credible evidence.
Well, who are the other names? Give me the other names that weren't charged.
We are not releasing the names of anyone because the Department of Justice never does that of anyone that didn't have any credible information to attack them.
Let me move forward. The president has, you've seen the picture of the woman's body with the writing and the president's signature. The president says that's not his. Okay? President says it's not his. The Republican colleagues say it's not his. The administration say it's not his. Will you be opening up an investigation into the Epstein estate for putting out a fake document with the president's signature linking him to the world's largest pedophile ring? Will you be opening that investigation into that?
On what basis?
On what basis? They literally put out a fake document, according to the president, with a fake signature. It's a forgery of the president of the United States signature. That's the basis.
Sure, I'll do it.
Okay, I look forward to that investigation. Am I over? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your diligence.
Gentleman's time has expired. Chair.
The scandal that refuses to fade, one name has hovered over politics, media, and the public imagination for years. For as long as people can remember, there's been talk of lists, binders, hidden files, and whispered promises that shocking revelations were just around the corner. It was Kash Patel alongside his allies who helped fuel that fire, standing in front of cameras and microphones declaring that the truth would come out. Pam Bondi herself was quoted saying that the infamous list was literally sitting on her desk. Supporters cheered, the base was electrified, and expectations grew that the coming storm would finally expose everyone connected to a predator's circle. But then something strange happened. The binders disappeared. The list suddenly didn't exist. And just like that, the story shifted. There was no credible evidence, no one else charged, no sweeping revelations. The contradictions couldn't be more glaring. Why make those promises if there was never any intent to follow through? That bait and switch set the stage for one of the most jarring moments in the hearing. A photo began circulating, a woman's body with a scrawled message and what looked like the president's signature. Within hours, denials came flying. The president insisted the signature was fake. His allies echoed him. The administration dismissed it. But here's the question that froze the room: if a forged signature really tied a sitting president to the most infamous trafficking case in modern history, why wouldn't that trigger an immediate investigation? Why was there no urgency, no alarm bells? A forgery linked to the most explosive scandal of a generation should have been treated like a national security emergency. Instead, it was brushed aside. Now flip the script. Imagine for a second if that alleged forgery carried the signature of President Biden. Imagine if a photo tied him, even falsely, to the Epstein scandal. The right would have demanded investigations by dawn. Cable news would have gone wall to wall. Congressional hearings would have been scheduled overnight. The story would have been declared the scandal of the century. But when the shoe is on the other foot, silence. That silence spoke volumes about how justice is applied or avoided, depending on whose name is involved. Representative Jared Moskowitz hammered this point, calling out the hypocrisy head-on. When accusations can be weaponized against opponents, they are shouted from the rooftops. But when the same spotlight swings toward allies, suddenly the story changes. Suddenly we're told there's nothing to see. That isn't just deflection, it's the rewriting of rules mid-game. And it forces an uncomfortable question: is justice really blind, or does it peek out from under the blindfold to check party affiliation before acting? But the problem runs deeper than what happens inside the walls of Congress. Moskowitz made a critical connection: the way these scandals are handled doesn't just stay in hearing rooms, they leak out into the wilds of social media, where half-truths and conspiracy theories grow into entire movements. He pointed out that platforms are already flooded with disinformation, bizarre claims about Charlie Kirk being assassinated by Israel, false stories about FBI plots, and rumors pushed by personalities like Candace Owens claiming evidence was manufactured. When the public watches politicians dodge questions and dance around accountability, it fuels the idea that the truth is being hidden. And that vacuum gets filled with even more dangerous lies. Think about how easy it is for foreign actors, bots, and partisan media to weaponize that distrust. Every unanswered question, every contradiction becomes fertile ground for manipulation. And it isn't harmless chatter online, it spills into real life. It shows up in how communities argue, how families divide, how violence takes root. When people stop trusting institutions altogether, they stop believing in accountability itself. They retreat into camps, convinced the other side is hiding everything. That's the real-world cost of political games around Epstein. It isn't just about binders of names or forged signatures, it's about what happens when survivors are forgotten and citizens are left in the dark. When the official story is there's nothing to see here, while years of hype promised the opposite, people don't just shrug and move on. They lose faith. They stop believing that the system will ever tell them the truth. And that's when chaos takes over. The Epstein scandal has always been radioactive because it sits at the crossroads of money, power, and abuse. It has touched politicians, celebrities, and institutions. It has been whispered about in corridors of power and shouted about in comment sections. Survivors have come forward with harrowing accounts, yet the trail always seems to stop short of the people who moved in those same circles. For years the public has been asked to accept that only two names, Epstein and Maxwell, were involved in any meaningful way. Moskowitz cut straight into that contradiction. If there was never any credible evidence against anyone else, why fuel the narrative of binders and secret lists? Why let supporters believe justice was coming for all, when in reality nothing more would ever be revealed? That's the danger of weaponizing a scandal. When leaders play politics with truth, contradictions catch up sooner or later. Survivors who deserve answers are left watching as their pain is used for political gain. Citizens who deserve transparency are left drowning in conspiracy theories. And institutions tasked with accountability appear selective at best, complicit at worst. Zoom out for a moment. This isn't just about who said what in a hearing. It's about whether America's justice system can be trusted at all. If a forged document linked to the most explosive scandal of the century doesn't merit an investigation, what does? If promises of full disclosure turn out to be empty, why should the public believe any of the next promises? And if justice only applies when it's politically convenient, is it really justice? The answer matters because the consequences ripple far beyond politics. They ripple into the lives of survivors who still wait for closure. They ripple into communities torn apart by mistrust and division. They ripple into the very heart of democracy, because without faith and accountability, what's left? Moskowitz's questioning wasn't perfect, but it forced the issue. It showed in plain view how quick some are to demand answers when it suits them, and how quick they are to go silent when the spotlight shifts. It revealed that for all the noise about justice, truth, and accountability, the rules aren't applied equally. And until they are, survivors will remain in limbo, institutions will remain distrusted, and America will remain divided. So where does that leave us? With a choice. Either we continue down the path of selective justice, where truth bends depending on political convenience, or we decide that survivors deserve better, citizens deserve better, and the truth should stand no matter whose name is attached to it. Because if the powerful are shielded, justice is an illusion. If you've stayed with this video until now, you know how important this story really is. It isn't just about one exchange or one scandal, it's about whether truth can survive in a system built on politics. And if you believe survivors deserve answers, if you believe accountability should never be selective, then stay engaged, demand transparency, and make sure more people hear this story. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this video so the truth doesn't get buried. Because if the public doesn't hold leaders accountable, no one else will.